In this video, we are continuing to read through the book of Ecclesiastes, which was, according to the traditional view, written by King Solomon. And King Solomon was an interesting person for lots of reasons, not least his wisdom, his copious amounts of wealth and women, for building the first Jewish temple, and also his fame in the occult world. And God knows if Solomon made it home to be with Jesus. His foreign women led him astray and into idolatry.
Even the wisest man can still fall. King Solomon was given extraordinary wisdom. When God offered him anything he desired, he asked not for riches or power, but for wisdom to lead his people well. God granted his request. Solomon became the wisest and wealthiest king of his time. His kingdom prospered. His fame spread across the world, but success became his greatest test. Over the years, Solomon married many foreign wives. Little by little, his heart drifted away from God. He began to tolerate and eventually support the worship of other gods. The man known for wisdom failed to guard his own heart. Solomon's story reminds us, wisdom can lead you far, but only God can keep you there.
It's believed that Solomon wrote Ecclesiastes late in life because the tone is world-weary and wise, examining what matters after trying every worldly pleasure. And the central message concludes that life apart from God is completely meaningless. It's hevel, like chasing the wind. Our reading here picks up in chapter 7, and as before, Solomon the teacher gets straight to the point. Thus he asserts in verse 1, "A good name is better than fine perfume, and the day of death better than the day of birth." It appears that Solomon, in his wisdom, believes that it's better to die than it is to be born, and I get that. And whilst we could surmise that people rest in peace, this is not guaranteed because it depends where our spirit goes, whether it ascends or descends. And it seems most people do not rest in peace. On the contrary, untold souls are being relentlessly tormented. In Matthew chapter 7, verses 13 to 14, Jesus said that the road to destruction is broad and many enter it, and the path to life is narrow and only a few find it. The teacher continues in verses 2 to 4, asserting, "It is better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting, for death is a destiny of everyone. The living should take this to heart. Frustration is better than laughter, because a sad face is good for the heart. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of pleasure." The teacher is teaching that facing the reality of death brings greater wisdom than constantly chasing shallow entertainment. Funerals remind us that life is short and death is a heartbeat away. Reflecting on mortality, as the existentialists highlight, helps us to evaluate what truly matters in life, whereas endless partying distracts us from deeper truths. The devil's sneaky ploy is to keep us distracted until we die, so he wins another soul. The teacher continues in verses 5 to 7, stating, "It is better to heed the rebuke of a wise person than to listen to the song of fools. Like the crackling of thorns under the pot, so is the laughter of fools. This too is meaningless. Extortion turns a wise person into a fool, and a bribe corrupts the heart." As Solomon highlighted before, there is a time for laughter and there's a time for being serious. And Solomon is serious in this book because life and death and where we spend eternity is serious. The teacher continues offering nuggets of wisdom from verses 8 to 9, stating, "The end of a matter is better than its beginning, and patience is better than pride. Do not be quickly provoked in your spirit, for anger resides in the lap of fools." And we can all think of fools who anger easily and shout their mouth off. When I was a social worker, I used to watch Super Nanny religiously, and she would say that the one who loses control is the loser, whereas the wise person maintains their composure. In verse 10, the teacher states, Do not say, Why were the old days better than these? For it is not wise to ask such questions. It seems we humans fall into the trap of nostalgia. Like, I prefer life before smartphones and woke ideology. But the teacher is warning us not to idealise the past. The past is in the rearview mirrors. It's gone. The teacher continues in verses 11 to 12, stating, "Wisdom, like an inheritance, is a good thing and benefits those who see the sun. Wisdom is a shelter, as money is a shelter. But the advantage of knowledge is this: wisdom preserves those who have it. Wisdom is superior to money because money can't save us from death or spiritual emptiness. Wisdom protects and sustains us on a deeper level." The teacher states in 13 to 14, "Consider what God has done. Who can straighten what he has made crooked? When times are good, be happy. And when times are bad, consider this: God has made the one as well as the other. Therefore, no one can discover anything about their future." God is sovereign over all. He allows the good and the bad. As Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, verse 45, "For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust." The teacher continues in verses 15 to 18, asserting, "In this meaningless life of mine, I have seen both of these, the righteous perishing in their righteousness, and the wicked living long in their wickedness. Do not be over-righteous, neither be over-wise. Why destroy yourself? Do not be over-wicked, and do not be a fool. Why die before your time? It is good to grasp the one and not let go of the other. Whoever fears God will avoid all extremes." The teacher is highlighting that life doesn't follow predictable rules like the good flourish and the evil destruct, as we often observe the opposite, like we see the oppressed buckling at the hands of their oppressors. It's an interesting juxtaposition from verses 19 to 20, as the teacher states in verse 19, "Wisdom makes one person more powerful than 10 rulers in a city." But then in verse 20 he asserts, "Indeed, there is no one on earth who is righteous, no one who does what is right and never sins." Respectively, it seems that Solomon is basking in the glory of wisdom for one moment, and then in the next moment he's given himself a reality check that no one's perfect, because he wasn't. He was the wisest person, yet he too turned to folly. And he never met Jesus, who came to earth and who always did right and never sinned. The teacher continues in verse 21, asserting, "Do not pay attention to every word that people say, or you may hear your servant cursing you. For you know in your heart that many times you yourself have cursed others." This is a bemusing observation, because it's true. Everyone speaks about everyone else, and perhaps it's better that we don't know what people are saying about us behind our backs. The teacher continues to focus on wisdom in verses 23 to 25, stating, "All this I tested by wisdom, and I said, I am determined to be wise. But this was beyond me. Whatever exists is far off and most profound. Who can discover it? So I turned my mind to understand, to investigate and to search out wisdom and the scheme of things, and to understand the stupidity of wickedness and the madness of folly." We're like ants scuttling around down here on earth and with limited understanding. Ergo, we can seek out wisdom, but ultimately it's beyond us. God's ways are higher than our ways, just as our ways are higher than an ant's ways. The teacher continues in verse 26, asserting, "I find more bitter than death the woman who is a snare, whose heart is a trap, and whose hands are chains. The man who pleases God will escape her, but the sinner she will ensnare." I find that interesting because Solomon knew women. He was familiar with their seduction and their treachery. Perhaps he realised at the end of his life that they brought him down, much like Eve brought Adam down. The teacher continues in verses 27 to 29, asserting, "Look," says the teacher, "this is what I have discovered. Adding one thing to another to discover the scheme of things, While I was still searching but not finding, I found one upright man among 1,000, but not one upright woman among them all. This only have I found: God created mankind upright, but they have gone in search of many schemes. The teacher is highlighting that most of us, men and women, are shockers. We're like the wandering stars who wandered off of God's ordained or intended course. And women are not to be underestimated. It seems Solomon is red-pilled. In chapter 8, the teacher continues to focus on wisdom, stating in verse 1, "Who is like the wise? Who knows the explanation of things? A person's wisdom brightens their face and changes its hard appearance." It's interesting that wisdom can be detected from our appearance. Like sometimes we can tell that someone's clever just by looking at them. And people's faces can look hard or soft, which is a reflection of their hearts. And the eyes are the window to the soul, or the mirror to the soul. From verses 2 to 4, the teacher asserts we must obey the king. He writes, "Obey the king's command, I say, because you took an oath before God. Do not be in a hurry to leave the king's presence. Do not stand up for a bad cause, for he will do whatever he pleases. Since a king's word is supreme, who can say to him, 'What are you doing?'" He continues in verse 5 to 6, stating, "Whoever obeys his command will come to no harm, and the wise heart will know the proper time and procedure. For there is a proper time and procedure for every matter, though a person may be weighed down by misery." And in verse 7 to 8, the teacher asserts, "Since no one knows the future, who can tell someone else what is to come? As no one has power over the wind to contain it, no one has power over the time of their death. As no one is discharged in time of war, so wickedness will not release those who practice it." The teacher is emphasizing how powerless we are, like fragile eggshells. The teacher continues in verses 9 to 10, stating, "All this I saw as I applied my mind to everything done under the sun. There is a time when a man lords it over others to his own hurt. Then too I saw the wicked buried, those who used to come and go from the holy place and receive praise in the city where they did this. This too is meaningless." Solomon understands the abuse of power and the farce of the wicked who are esteemed as good. The teacher then continues in verses 11 to 13, stating, "When the sentence for a crime is not quickly carried out, people's hearts are filled with schemes to do wrong. Although a wicked person who commits 100 crimes may live a long time, I know that it will go better with those who fear God, who are reverent before him. Yet because the wicked do not fear God, it will not go well with them, and their days will not lengthen like a shadow." And it's true. When punishment for wrongdoing is slow, people often feel emboldened to commit more sin. Like, we got away with stealing, cheating and lying the last time, so why not do it again? But God will ultimately prevail over all wickedness, and it is unquestionably better to align ourselves with him. The teacher then continues in verses 14 to 15, stating, "There is something else meaningless that occurs on earth. The righteous who get what the wicked deserve, and the wicked who get what the righteous deserve. This too, I say, is meaningless. So I commend the enjoyment of life, because there is nothing better for a person under the sun than to eat and drink and be glad. Then joy will accompany them in their toil all the days of their life God has given them under the sun." Why Solomon again hits the nail on the head regarding the injustices in life, like the wicked prosper and the righteous get humped. We can think of countless examples, but again, God will rectify and redeem all things, and the wicked will get their just desserts, like discussed in Jimmy Savile and Hitler. Chapter 8 concludes with the teacher asserting in verse 16 to 17, "When I applied my mind to know wisdom and to observe the labour that is done on earth, people getting no sleep day or night, then I saw all that God has done. No one can comprehend what goes on under the sun. Despite all their efforts to search it out, no one can discover its meaning. Even if the wise claim they know, they cannot really comprehend it. It's evident that Solomon struggled to understand life under the sun, and he was wise enough to know, like Socrates after him, that the wise man knows he knows nothing. And we are none the wiser circa 3,000 years later. Indeed, there's an argument that we're more retarded. Like, people believe that the universe came from nothing, whereas at least the Greek philosophers were sensible enough to believe in a prime mover. Someone had to get the show on the road. In chapter 9, the teacher highlights the common destiny for all. In verses 1 to 2, he states, "So I reflected on all this and concluded that the righteous and the wise and what they do are in God's hands, but no one knows whether love or hate awaits them. All share a common destiny, the righteous and the wicked, the good and the bad, the clean and the unclean, those who sacrifice and those who do not. As it is with the good, so with the sinful. As it is with those who take oaths, so with those who are afraid to take them." Again, the teacher is highlighting that no one knows what's in the post, and death comes to us all.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend, the end of our elaborate plans, the end of everything that stands, the end, no safety or surprise, the end. I'll never look into your eyes again.
The teacher continues in verse 3 to 4, stating, "This is the evil in everything that happens under the sun. The same destiny overtakes all. The hearts of people, moreover, are full of evil, and there is madness in their hearts while they live, and afterward they join the dead. Anyone who is among the living has hope. Even a live dog is better off than a dead lion." People's hearts are equally full of evil in 2026, and people are equally mental. Perhaps more so courtesy of the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, and Big Pharma. And only the living has hope, because once we give up the ghost, our fate is sealed. We live our life and then we face judgment. The teacher continues in verse 5 to 6, stating, "For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing. They have no further reward, and even their name is forgotten. Their love, their hate, and their jealousy have long since vanished. Never again will they have a part in anything that happens under the sun." This detail, that the dead know nothing, is important because people think that they can consult with the dead, whereas Solomon is confirming here that once a person has crossed over, they lose all active involvement, awareness, and influence in the daily affairs that happen under the sun, that happen in this world. Thus, when people are consulting with psychics and mediums, they are engaging with demons. The teacher states in verses 7 to 10, "Go eat your food with gladness and drink your wine with a joyful heart, for God has already approved what you do. Always be clothed in white and always anoint your head with oil. Enjoy life with your wife, whom you love, all the days of this meaningless life that God has given you under the sun. All your meaningless days, for this is your lot in life and in your toilsome labor under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might, for in the realm of the dead, where you are going, there is neither working, nor planning, nor knowledge, nor wisdom." The teacher continues in verse 11, asserting, "I have seen something else under the sun. The race is not to the swift, or the battle to the strong, nor does food come to the wise, or wealth to the brilliant, or favour to the learned, but time and chance happen to them all." This is another famous quote from Ecclesiastes, which again showcases the limits of human control. Life is unpredictable, and there are no guarantees regarding how things play out. Ergo, the swiftest do not always win the race, and the strongest do not always win the battle. It's like Solomon's father, David, King David, defeated giant Goliath when he was a teenager because God was with him. The teacher continues in verse 12, asserting, "Moreover, no one knows when their hour will come, as fish are caught in a cruel net, or birds are taken in a snare, so people are trapped by evil times that fall unexpectedly upon them." The teacher continues to explain how wisdom is better than folly. In verses 13 to 16, he states, "I also saw under the sun this example of wisdom that greatly impressed me. There was once a small city with only a few people in it, and a powerful king came against it, surrounded it, and built huge siege works against it. Now there lived in that city a man, poor but wise, and he saved the city by his wisdom. But nobody remembered that poor man. So I said, wisdom is better than strength, but the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are no longer heeded." Chapter 9 ends in verse 17, which states, "The quiet words of the wise are more to be heeded than the shouts of a ruler of fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good." In chapter 10, the teacher continues to contrast the wise and the foolish. He states in verses 1 to 4, "As dead flies give perfume a bad smell, so a little folly outweighs wisdom and honour. The heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the heart of the fool to the left. Even as fools walk along the road, they lack sense and show everyone how stupid they are. If a ruler's anger rises against you, do not leave your post. Calmness can lay great offences to rest." The teacher continues in verses 5 to 7, stating, "There is an evil I have seen under the sun, the sort of error that arises from a ruler. Fools are put in many high positions, while the rich occupy the low ones. I have seen slaves on horseback, while princes go on foot like slaves." Respectively, we can think of incompetent political leaders like Sniffer Biden and George W. Bush, former leaders of the free world.
We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Wealthy kids, black kids, Asian kids. No, I really mean it, but think how we think about it.
I'm sorry to take so long, guys, but everyone knows I like kids better than people.
I like kids better than people.
Everybody knows I like kids better than people. Waiting for relief. I got them $1.9 trillion relief so far.
They're going to be getting checks in the mail that are consequential this week for childcare. A lot has been happened already, number one. Number two, I'm going to fight like heck. Just remind them, I wrote the bill on the environment. Why would I not be for it?
Guess what? Employers can't find workers.
I said, yeah, pay them more. This is an employees bargaining chip now. What's happening? They're going to have to compete and start paying hard-working people a decent wage.
And confidence. We've got a lot of thanks to give out here.
Our capacity is through the partnership that we have, the federal and state government, along with local governments. This issue is ongoing each year, as we have discussed. It gets worse. It affects real people.
Thank you, Boris. And I want to thank that fellow down under. Thank you very much, pal. Appreciate it, Mr. Prime Minister. By the way, you know, I sit on the stand and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
A lot of people want to send blankets or water. Just send your cash. A mother with 2 children, which is the toughest job in America as far as I'm concerned. And you're working hard to put food on your family. Imagine somebody like Osama bin Laden understanding the joy of Hanukkah.
Tumultuous events. That's what I believe I can do, because I learned how to do it when I was governor of the state of Florida.
Yeah, I know you can do it.
One of the things I've used on the Google is to pull up maps.
Fool me once. Shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again. I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive. Our enemies are innovative and resourceful, and so are we. They never stop thinking about new ways to harm our country and our people, and neither do we. I oppose breaching those dams. I know the human being and fish can coexist peacefully.
The teacher continues in verses 8 to 11, asserting, "Whoever digs a pit may fall into it. Whoever breaks through a wall may be bitten by a snake. Whoever quarries stones may be injured by them. Whoever splits logs may be endangered by them. If the axe is dull and its edge unsharpened, more strength is needed, but skill will bring success. If a snake bites before it is charmed, the charmer receives no fee." It seems pertinent to highlight the King James version of verse 8, namely, "Whoso breaketh a hedge, a serpent shall bite him," because this pertains to spiritual warfare. We hear that Job has a hedge of protection around him in Job chapter 1 verse 10. Respectively, Christians can pray for a hedge of protection around ourselves and around others. But if this hedge is broken, like if we open spiritual doors or through sin, we can be demonically attacked by serpents. The teacher continues in verses 12 to 14, asserting, "Words from the mouth of the wise are gracious, but fools are consumed by their own lips. At the beginning their words are folly, at the end they are wicked madness, and fools multiply words. No one knows what is coming. Who can tell someone else what will happen after them?" Wise Solomon again stresses that no one knows what will happen tomorrow or the next minute. Like someone could fall to the floor clutching their chest on the way out, or an earthquake could happen and we could all be buried under rubble. Anything can happen at any time in this insane and uncertain life. The teacher continues in verses 15 to 17, stating, "The toil of fools wearies them. They do not know the way to the town. Woe to the land whose king was a servant and whose princes feast in the morning. Blessed is the land whose king is of noble birth and whose princes eat at a proper time, for strength and not for drunkenness. Through laziness the rafters sag, because of idle hands the house leaks." I remember resonating with Solomon's last point, that through laziness the roof leaks, because I have been that lazy person. My roof leaked for 4 years, and I would turn the volume up on the TV to drown out the sound of the loud dripping. Chapter 10 concludes with verses 19 to 20. "A feast is made for laughter, wine makes life merry, and money is the answer for everything. Do not revile the king, even in your thoughts, or curse the rich in your bedroom, because a bird in the sky may carry your words, and a bird on the wing may report what you say." Respectively, it's true that wine makes life merry, but the Bible is clear that we're not to be drunk, and drunkards do not inherit the kingdom of God. And money does solve problems or provide shelter, as Solomon previously noted. If we have money, well, we should be okay. And it's interesting that Solomon asserts that one ought not to revile the king or curse the rich, because that seems like an egocentric position, but also it's arguably wise, as there could be repercussions for slander, and we also need to watch out for those sneaky little telltale birds. The teacher continues with some practical advice in chapter 11, verses 1 to 4, asserting, "Ship your grain across the sea. After many days you may receive a return. Invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. If clouds are full of water, they pour rain on the earth. Whether a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where it falls, there it will lie. Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap." I appreciate Solomon's last point vis-a-vis analysis paralysis and waiting for ideal conditions that may never come. Sometimes we need to move and do something, or we never do anything. The teacher continues in verses 5 to 6, stating, "As you do not know the path of the wind or how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle, for you do not know what will succeed, whether this or that, or whether both will do equally well." The teacher seems to focus on effort as opposed to control, because he understands that God is ultimately in control. It's like we tie our camel up and we trust in God. And if someone does snaffle our camel, then such is life. We can't understand God's workmanship nor understand his ways. The teacher then advises us to know our Creator while we're still young. In verse 7 to 8, he states, "Light is sweet, and it pleases the eyes to see the sun. However many years anyone may live, let them enjoy them all, but let them remember the days of darkness, for there will be many. Everything to come is meaningless." This sentiment reminds me of my brother's wisdom, as he also insists that we need to roll with the good times because the crap times are never far away. Chapter 11 concludes with verses 9 to 10, which states, "You who are young, be happy while you are young, and let your heart give you joy in the days of your youth. Follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eyes see, but know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment. So then, banish anxiety from your heart and cast off the troubles of your body, for youth and vigor are meaningless." Thus, it's wise to enjoy our youth, but equally to keep in mind that we will be responsible for our actions. Ergo, we would aim to have good, clean fun under the sun, as opposed to the worldly type of pleasure that leads to damnation. Solomon equally understands that youth and vigor are hevel. They're fleeting like vapor. Hence, we are to enjoy it while we can. An old atheist scientist friend of mine used to say that this life takes no time. And my mum concurs. She says that we can never keep up with life. And finally, we reach the last chapter in this contentiously dark and depressing book. And well done if you're still with me. And I like how chapter 12 begins. In verses 1 to 3, we're told, "Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark, and the clouds return after the rain, when the keepers of the house tremble and the strong men stoop, when the grinders cease, because they are few, and those looking through the windows grow dim." Respectively, the teacher has a grim, albeit realistic, view on aging, and his metaphors are interesting. Like the dark skies and the windows represent our failing eyesight, our legs and our backs grow weak, and we hunch over, and we tremble and we lose our teeth, our grinders. Aging is a bemusing process. Like our eyesight begins to deteriorate from circa 45, and grey hair becomes a feature, increasingly a feature. And how weird are the developmental changes when boys and girls, when we turn into adults, like boys turn into teen wolf with their excess fur. The teacher continues in verses 4 to 5, stating, "When the doors to the street are closed and the sound of grinding fades, when people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint, when people are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets, when the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags itself along, and desire no longer is stirred, then people go to their eternal home, and mourners go about the streets. Again, I love the teacher's use of poetic imagery to describe the physical decline, frailty, and the loss of vitality that comes with old age. And also his reminder that we must honour God before our life ends. We need to get ourselves right with the Lord. Where we spend eternity, our eternal home, is the most important thing in this meaningless life. And it blows me away that people don't think about it more. And it's also crazy that people leave contemplating their salvation until their deathbed, like Constantine, who Christianized the Roman Empire, for one example. But the next verse, verse 6, is one of the most interesting for me because it pertains to the silver cord that connects our astral body to our physical body. Those who practice astral projection are familiar with the silver cord. The silver cord is like an umbilical cord, and when it's cut, our physical body dies, and our spirit body, which houses our soul, goes either up or down. Thus, verses 6 to 7 state, "Remember him before the silver cord is severed and the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring and the wheel broken at the well, and the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God, who gave it." It's also interesting that Solomon highlights that our bodies return to the dust from which they came, and that our spirit or breath returns to God. We give up the ghost or breath or spirit. Our time on earth is done, and there is no round two. It's time for judgment. And what a perfect way to finish his book, which ends in verse 8 and which repeats the same line, the opening line in chapter 1 verse 2, namely, "Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is meaningless." Respectively, it's highlighted that these two verses act as bookends. They frame the teacher's argument and wrap around his lifelong exploration of wealth, wisdom, pleasure, and work. In the opening verse, the teacher introduces the problem of a world full of routine, death, and unanswered questions, and then he reaffirms this reality after testing everything that life has to offer. The author, who introduced the teacher at the beginning, then resumes the reins and summarises the teacher's lifelong work. He asserts from verses 9 to 10, "Not only was the teacher wise, but he also imparted knowledge to the people. He pondered and searched out and set in order many proverbs. The teacher searched to find just the right words, and what he wrote was upright and true." The author continues in verses 11 to 12, asserting, "The words of the wise are like goads, their collected sayings like firmly embedded nails, given by one shepherd. Be warned, my son, of anything in addition to them. Of making many books there is no end, and much study wearies the body." I sometimes think of that latter point with respect to professors and the countless hours that they spend studying. We study endlessly, chasing pieces of paper, which is arguably hevel. The author then concludes in verses 13 to 14, asserting, "Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is a duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil." The ultimate takeaway is thus that life is completely hevel or meaningless without God. True happiness is not found in wisdom, pleasure, work, wealth, or women. It's found solely in God. And the only thing that ultimately matters is to fear God and keep his commandments. The book of Ecclesiastes resolves its existential crisis at the very end by highlighting this essential truth. Omniscient God knows everything, and there is no hiding anything from him. Each one of us will have to give an account for our lives, and the only way that we can be forgiven and redeemed is through the blood of Jesus. And God knows if Solomon made it home to heaven. You'll find out if you make it. At any rate, I hope you enjoyed our reading of this book together, and I hope that you're wiser because of Solomon's wisdom.